Well, I hit the wrong button. My goodness. Oy vey, let's try this again. Oh, I did it again, didn't I? Come, let us explore whether the traumatized could find enlightenment. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. A question that begins, will childhood trauma make it impossible to be enlightened? The question concisely concludes, I have too much trauma. To the individual who wrote this question, I am sincerely sorry that you have too much trauma. And this is your lucky day because so do I. It's not my job to play petty one-upsmanship. I just want to let you know I know where you're coming from. So briefly, I have autism, I have ADHD, I have fetal alcohol exposure, birth trauma, brain damage, C, PTSD, myalgic encephalomyelitis, and Ehlers-Danlos spectrum. So, yeah, a shit ton of things going on. If there is such a thing as good karma, I've spent all mine on two quests: surviving my disabilities and mastering the path. And I'd like to hand you some shortcuts so your journey can be quicker and easier than mine was. So forgive me if I insult your intelligence. That is not my intention. There is a tremendous overlapping Venn diagram between trauma and neurodivergence. In fact, most people who are neurodivergent were traumatized as children simply because even the best neurotypical, the wisest and the kindest, are puzzled with neurodivergence. And not all neurotypicals are the wisest or the kindest. Some are dull and some are cruel. So when speaking with doctors of psychology who specialize in neurodivergence, their conclusion is the vast majority that they've never met a neurodivergent who wasn't traumatized. The reason I say this is that neurodivergence is tied to physiology. And quite often when seeking treatment for trauma, we come across a scenario not unlike the old saw of several blind men coming upon an elephant. One grabs the elephant's leg and thinks it's a tree trunk. One presses against the side of the elephant and feels like it's a cliff or a rock face. One grabs the tail of the elephant and feels that it's a vine. One grabs the tusk of the elephant and thinks it is a spear. One grabs the ear of the elephant and thinks it is a palm leaf. One grabs the trunk of the elephant and thinks it is a mighty serpent. Sadly, too often the symptoms of trauma are isolated from the physiological scenario, and they're treated piecemeal, ineffectively. So I strongly urge anyone in your situation to find a therapist in your area who specializes in childhood trauma and who can help you to figure out if some of your symptoms could also be indicative of neurodivergence, not for the sake of joining an elite club, but for the sake of better understanding and meeting your needs. So clearly this is just a hyperlink on the screen, but in the description area below the video, both these hyperlinks are active. They are free databases that can help you find someone who specializes in both neurodivergence and trauma. And this is they can lead you to an excellent set of tools. And there's an additional thing I'd like to add right here. Let's see. Dr. Tom Hartman's Walking Your Blues Away. This is an excellent resource. Basically what he did was he took a neuroscientific approach to brisk walking meditation. By the time this lesson is done, you will have a good bead on 3 things: what enlightenment is, how to attain it, and how to practice walking meditation. Let's get into it. So, what is the enlightenment offered by the Buddha? If our understanding of enlightenment has been skewed either by incompetent teachers or societal myths, and if we've come to believe that enlightenment is simply only feeling peace all the time, or only feeling bliss all the time, or literally being omniscient, or literally being exactly like Gandalf the Grey, then the answer is nobody's going to become enlightened. But if our definition of enlightenment aligns with the Buddha's definition, and if our strategy aligns with the Buddha's strategy, then it is entirely possible to attain enlightenment in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Now that I have thrown the gauntlet, let us explore what the Buddha's definition of enlightenment is. That can be explored in 2 parts. The first part is a reference to the Buddha's first lesson, the Four Noble Truths, from a certain point of view. The first noble truth is there are stressors. Ask a biologist. They'll tell you. There are some stressors are circumstantial, some are physical, some are interpersonal, and some are mental. Our capacity to perceive stressors is not because we're negative, it's not because we believe in a self. It's wired into us to enhance our chances of survival. And while we're on the subject of survival, we have certain discrete survival drives. The three most basic are to shove, or reach, or cling. The six more elaborate would be the 6 F's. Brace yourself, I'm gonna work blue. When perceiving anything new in our environment, our first 6 rapid-fire instinctual responses could be framed as questions. Do I fuck this? Do I feed on this? Do I fight this? Do I flee from this? Do I faint before this? Do I fawn over this? Once again, these are not always conscious. These are deep, ancient impulses. Their presence is not an indictment. We evolved to have 2 reward systems. The first is dopamine oriented, and it rewards with pleasure for either A, procreating, or B, something that will support procreation. You know, drinking water when you're thirsty, eating food when you're hungry, sleeping when you're tired, finding warmth when you're cold, or finding shade when you're warm. These things are deep, deep survival drives, and they can give us short-term pleasure. The second reward mechanism is not dopamine-oriented, but oxytocin-oriented, and it rewards with long-term sensations of fulfillment for acts of cooperation. In a well-adjusted, healthy individual, both are there. In an unhealthy individual, the tools, our body treats the survival drives not as tools, but as a tyrant. So the liberation that the Buddha offers us is not from the presence of the tools of our primal drives, but from the tyranny over our choices and utterances and deeds. The Enlightenment is nothing mystical, it's nothing magical, it's simply mastery of the Eightfold Path. As a child, I found learning how to tie my shoes befuddling. But eventually, with much time and effort and many repeat instructions, and I'm sure many tears, eventually I got so good at tying my shoes that I could do so spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. We can master many skills. We can master brushing our teeth, going potty, tying our shoes, riding a bicycle. Most children are able to master many things. As children are able to master rudimentary mathematics, rudimentary composition, and the like. We're able to master walking, running, sometimes things like deep bends and push-ups. It's amazing the skills a child can master. As an adult, it's possible to master the Buddha's Eightfold Path. Now, I take a silly approach to the Eightfold Path. I found it's most effective to begin with the 7th and the 8th folds, which are mindfulness and meditation. So before I can explain that, I would like to give you a caveat. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. Therefore, we should not be surprised when 90% of so-called meditation teachers sincerely believe that being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel is actually a good thing. So this rigidity and these controlling tendencies rear their head when it's time to teach meditation. So when these individuals are prone to imploring their students to actively concentrate, often upon their breath, and to actively analyze whatever that which isn't their breath, whatever comes up. If we sincerely strive to follow these instructions, the only way to do so is by utilizing discrete mechanisms found in areas of our brain, such as the medial prefrontal cortex or the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Now, I'm not here to shit all over the prefrontal cortex. It's an amazing region of the brain. Man, if you want to compare, contrast, analyze, calculate, reason, edit, this is the part of the brain that's going to do the heavy lifting. But it's like a Stradivarius. It's high strung, and when we push it too hard, or for too long, or both, we trigger the amygdala. This lumpy thing here that looks like a large pea or a small almond. This thing right here that functions as the seat of aggression and anxiety, which ironically will increase our propensity for even greater, for being even more rigid, fearful, controlling, superstitious, cryptic, elitist, competitive, and cruel. So that's a big fat bummer. Nobody wants that. But there's some good news. There are regions of our central nervous system that have evolved in such a way as to make them optimized for both mindfulness and meditation. Let's explore that right now. We'll begin with mindfulness, the seventh fold of the Buddha's eightfold path. Every time we inhale, we are already wired to effortlessly and automatically access our sympathetic nervous system located in the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Not only to perceive sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, as well as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, but to perceive whole spectra of phenomena. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. That could sound a little overwhelming. Evolution has given us a safety valve, which of course brings us to the eighth fold of the Buddha's eightfold path, meditation. Because every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, whether we feel it or not, whether we mean to or not, we are already wired to automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, found in both the lower third as well as the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us both physically relax and mentally release. Now, you could understandably ask right now, well, if this is the case, why am I not already enlightened? Simple. In a word, Urkel. Our brains like Urkel. It's clever, it means well, but it's klutzy. And it's knocking elbows into eyeballs. It's all over the place. But just like updating the drivers on your computer, there are subtle things we can do to enhance the efficiency of the brain. Two things. Here's the first one. Every time we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, this exact same crazy brain of ours begins to cooperate with our sympathetic nervous system. Similarly, every time we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, this exact same three-ring circus of a brain begins cooperating with our parasympathetic nervous system. And so all meditation is a gentle way of enhancing the cooperation between our brain and the two facets of our autonomic nervous system. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So now you know what enlightenment is, and that oh yes, I skipped a step. I apologize for that. So now that we have a good bead on this whole mindfulness and meditation thing, here's some remarkably good news for you. Simply by practicing this effectively and consistently, perhaps once every 12 hours or so, we will generate the remaining 6 folds of the 8-fold path spontaneously. 50% of the 8-fold path pertains to loving kindness. Kindness of intention, kindness of communication, kindness of conduct, kindness of commerce. It's all forms of loving kindness. So check this out. Let's go back to the diagram of the brain. When we practice mindfulness and meditation, first we wind up calming the amygdala, anxious and aggressive. Second, we stimulate this thing right here, this anterior cingulate gyrus, causing it to function as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy and compassion and love. This is exactly why the late Tulku Thondup Rinpoche insisted that we could not concentrate or analyze our way to empathy, but that the highest empathy, the highest love, the highest compassion is that which is spontaneous and uncontrived. The spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of mindfulness and meditation. The 6th fold of the Buddha's 8-fold path is effort. The more we train in mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds will flow from the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. No, not scattered spontaneity, but centered spontaneity. That leaves us with the first fold of the 8-fold path, right view. We cannot help but notice change, though it make us feel uncomfortable. We cannot help but notice it. Whether we're in meditation or not, we are already wired to notice changes in sights and sounds and sensations, flavors, and scents. We are already wired to notice changes in our emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. This is a survival mechanism. So many times we go through life with our hands on our ears and our eyes closed, going, la la la, there is no change, everything is perfect. But it's not. And mindfulness and meditation can give us the intestinal fortitude to notice what's going on, the changes, be they subtle or be they jarring. Free from the tyranny of needless resistance to our external environment, to our internal environment, and the like. So here's something wild. You can always spot a bad teacher, because a bad teacher will say, oh man, this is going to take you a length of time greater than the age of the universe. They will actually say that. They'll use fancy Sanskrit words, but they'll say that. But the Buddha didn't say that. In the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha promised that it's possible to master his path in less than 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. Now, most of us were not raised meditating, sitting on the ground, or playing with our fingers. So I recommend a gradual approach. Perhaps 5 minutes every 12 hours during the first week, perhaps 10 minutes every 12 hours during the second week, maybe 15 minutes every 12 hours during the third week, maybe 20 minutes every 12 hours during the fourth week. Continuing with this pattern. By the end of the 12th week, sitting for 60 minutes could be child's play. By the end of the 16th week, you could sit for my lesson and the group meditation, which is live on YouTube every 12 hours. And YouTube does a pretty good job of saving most of mine. So you can, if you live in a different time zone, you can practice along at your convenience. And here's the cool thing. If you are watching live and you have a question, you can type your question in the chat window. And if you're watching a replay and you have a question, you can type your question in the chat window. And if your question is specific, I will get back to you. Probably with a link for a lesson in which I spend the entire lesson answering your question. So I promise you to explain to you what enlightenment was. I promise to explain to you how to accomplish enlightenment. Now let's discuss walking meditation. It's simple. Contrary to what you might have heard, you're just going for a brisk walk around your block. If you're in turmoil, I don't recommend crossing the street. That can multiply your stress. Just keep it simple. Walk around your block. Maybe for 20 minutes at first. Maybe for 40 minutes after a while. Maybe for 60 minutes when you're really feeling comfortable with this. And it's simple. As you walk, during the inhalation, you can label the processes already occurring in your sympathetic nervous system by silently, mentally, and passively reciting the verb perceiving. And during your exhalation, again, you can label the processes already occurring in your parasympathetic nervous system by silently, mentally, and passively reciting the verb releasing. And that's it. This is not an affirmation. You're not lying to yourself about what's going on. You are simply playing with words to help your brain cooperate with your autonomic nervous system. That's it. That's it. And of course, if you're doing walking meditation and you're like me and you like dogs and cats, then when a dog or cat crosses your path, take a little break. Pet the dog. Do some baby talk. It's good for you. You can wave to your neighbors. You can smile to your neighbors. If they ask you what you're doing, just tell the truth. And I'm doing some walking meditation just to deal with my past. Very few people are going to give you a ration of shit for doing that. Most people can relate to you on some degree or another. And at least they'll respect you because, man, you're trying to do something about what's going on in your life. What's not to respect about that? I think it could be great fun if together as a team we did a little bit of chanting and a little bit of meditating together. How's that sound? How's about 15 minutes of meditation? Would that be okay? Let's do that after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. I think it could be great fun if together as a team we played with the latest iteration of the vast expanse of Diamond Mind. Composed approximately in the 6th century by Prahe Vajra, translated recently by Yeshe Donden, and adapted as well as amplified by yours truly. Giddy up. Let us begin by chanting the 45th verse 3 times. The energetic radiance of consciousness dwells in all and is the way for all. For those lost in ignorance, confused by obscurations, it is like a medicine in search of a doctor to prescribe what is needed. During our second repetition, I'm going to give you brief explanations together. The energetic radiance of consciousness dwells in all and is the way for all. So energetic is a delicious euphemism for turbulence, for dynamism. The things we see and hear and feel and taste and smell, the things we emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine can be deeply turbulent. And yet, they can serve us on the path of enlightenment. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel less graspable, less permanent, and less defining. Figuratively, it could feel as non-graspable as a rainbow, as a sun ray, piercing your window on a Sunday morning. A rainbow, a light ray, warming a square on the carpet in which you can find a kitty cat snoozing. You can see the light ray, but if you put your hand into it, you can't grasp it. It's the damnedest thing. Just as the pendulum of a grandfather clock swings left to right continuously. Similarly, we breathe in and out continuously, and we experience perception and release in a continuous cycle, back and forth, back and forth. Our job is not to calm our mind. Our job is to notice it as we breathe in and cooperate with our body's wiring to relax as we breathe out. Relaxing doesn't mean that which we observed goes away. It just means we are making peace with it. We might even get sassy and ask it to pay rent. Let's continue. For those lost in ignorance, confused by obscurations, it is like a medicine in search of a doctor to prescribe what is needed. When we are when we have bit the hook that certain thoughts are wrong and certain emotions are bad, and if we do anything but concentrate, we're a failure. These things can feed our confusion. They can actually feed our jealousy and our pride. And they can get us so turned around, so bass-ackwards, that instead of being like doctors in search of a medicine, or like medicines in search of a doctor, just completely turned around. That's normal. Therefore, we shed the illusion that dynamic experience is bad. It's part of life. It might not be convenient. It might not be pleasurable, but it's certainly not permanent. It's always changing, is it not? Now that I've explained it to you, it's time for our third recitation. Together, here we go. The energetic radiance of consciousness dwells in all and is the way for all. For those lost in ignorance, confused by obscurations, it is like a medicine in search of a doctor to prescribe what is needed. Hey, let's meditate. So, for this, our first collection of 144 breaths, which takes approximately 15 minutes, let's keep track of which collection we're on by gingerly placing the great knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, and place these two hands palm up in our lap. Doing so could cause real or imagined subtle energies to collect at the chakra at the top of your head, whether or not you feel it, whether or not you believe in it. So, how are we going to count to 144 breaths on just 8 fingers and 2 thumbs? Simple. We're going to break it down to 12 sets of 12 repetitions. But isn't that just kicking the can down the road? I mean, we're still left with counting to 12 on 4 fingers and 1 thumb. How are we going to swing that? Easy. So I already taught you that during your inhalation, we're going to say this silently and mentally and passively. And during the exhalation, we're going to silently and mentally recite ease. Well, during our inhalation, what we can also do is advance the tip of our thumb upon the sets of creases upon each of our 4 fingers. You might want to follow along with me right now as we practice mindfulness and meditation. Now that we've learned how to count 12 rounds or repetitions on our right hand, on our left hand, we can count sets. The first set, the second set, the third set, and the like. Now, on the left hand, I recommend beginning with the index finger, and on the right hand, I recommend beginning with the little finger. Okay, let's continue. Let us chant the 46th verse of the vast expanse of Diamond Mind. From within the field of our understanding, bliss arises, revealing the ordinary world to be pristinely pure. When lights from all directions come together in one's heart, one realizes omnipresent divinity above, below, and in all directions. From within the field of our understanding, bliss arises, revealing the ordinary world as pristinely pure. Let us explore what this means. Every time we relax into our exhalation, we cannot help but release, even a little bit, our grasp on that which we perceived during the previous breath. We cannot help but release, even just a little bit, the stress we feel. And this can be somewhat blissful. The bliss could be subtle. The bliss could be very coarse. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we perceived during our previous inhalation could feel pure. But purified of what? Purified of solidity, purified of permanence, purified of defining. Now, is that permanent? No, it's fleeting like everything else. What in our world isn't fleeting? If everything goes well, children become adults, become geriatrics, become worm food. We see the changing of the seasons every year. We see the waxing of the moon every month. We see the rising and the setting of the sun every day. Even now we can gingerly rest the tips of our fingers upon our upper chest, feeling it swell and sink with the coming and the going of a breath, only to be followed by another and another ad infinitum if all goes well. When lights from all directions come together in one's heart, one realizes omnipresent divinity above, below, and in all directions. And yes, this is a highly figurative series of statements, is it not? I don't know about you, but most people I've met keep their lungs in their chest. I guess it keeps them from leaving them at home when they go to work. So every time we breathe in, we are wired to notice. And here light could very much, we could use light as a superficial metaphor of perception. We breathe in, air fills our chest, and perceptions fill our mind. As we relax into our exhalation, we experience divinity. But what does that mean? Well, divinity is a metaphor. And I'm going to do a quick edit. Please bear with me. Oh, okay, better yet. Here we go. Bear with me. S'il vous plaît. Going to hit insert. Going to look for a specific image. I'm going to hit the pictures. I'm going to hit Buddhist yoga. I'm going to hit Dorje Sampa. I'm going to hit mantra. I'm going to look for this one should do it. Okay, so I'm going to hit wrap text, pull this behind the text, going to scroll to the previous page, and I'm going to adjust the size of the image. Let's see if this fits okay. Yeah, it's okay. So I'm going to reduce the size of this font. The screen's going to go berserk for a moment. All right. In the words of Matthew McConaughey, here we go. Now let's illustrate this here. What do we mean by divinity? Well, we're using divinity as a metaphor. Now let's decode the metaphor, shall we? Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever circumstance, whatever sights we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as the mythic paradise of a Buddha, comprised only of light. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever sensations we might have perceived during a previous inhalation could begin to feel as if they were as non-graspable as a Buddha's archetype comprised only of light. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever sounds we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if they were as resounding yet non-graspable as the real or imagined mantra of a Buddha comprised only of light. One moment, if you please. Okay, this is a better image to use, and I get to go through the whole rigmarole again because life's funny that way. Okay, here we go. Okay, now, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, or imaginings we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could now feel as if they were as lucid yet non-graspable as a syllable hum comprised only of light, representing a Buddha's enlightened mind. So, this is a fanciful way of exploring the two truths explained by the South Indian philosopher Nagarjuna so many centuries ago. That things can be appearing yet void, sensual yet void, resounding yet void, lucid yet void. And now, let's put this rigmarole to the test. Control S. Here we go. Oh, darn. Okay, well, life's funny that way. Let's just go like this. So now that we've come to our second collection of 144 breaths, I think it could be Jim Dandy if we gingerly rested the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger in our lap. It's been said that doing so can cause the subtle energies to coalesce at the heart chakra. Whether we feel them, or believe in them, or not. I mentioned a collection of 144 breaths, but because time is short, let's just reduce that down to 96 breaths. This next verse is densely layered with metaphor. From the colors of the rainbow, the primordial families and the qualities all manifest. Compounded moving parts and the uncompounded moving base, along with the deities of the five elements that animate creation. So we spoke of the energetic radiance of consciousness. And revealing how our ordinary world is pristinely pure. And now we're going to take this to the next level. In a previous verse, we talked about... where is it? Something about chest, heart. Here we go. When lights from all directions come together in one's heart. And they are elaborating with this now. From the colors of the rainbow, the primordial families and their qualities are manifest. So, as we breathe in, we might notice any one or combination of the 5 mental poisons. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever hate we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as the mirror-like wisdom of Akshobhya's Vajra family. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pride we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as the equalizing wisdom of Ratnasambhava's jewel family. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever craving we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as the discerning wisdom of Amitabha's lotus family. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever jealousy we might have experienced during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as the all-accomplishing wisdom of Amagosadi's action family. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever befuddlement we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as non-graspable as the all-pervading wisdom of Vairocana's Buddha family. So we don't need to invoke Buddhas, real or imagined. We don't need to make offerings to Buddhas, real or imagined. We don't need to bow to Buddhas, real or imagined. We don't need to visualize Buddhas, real or imagined. All we need to do is notice whatever comes up as we breathe in and relax and release as best we can as we breathe out. Welcome to the easy path, which is also ironically the quick path. Compounded moving parts in the uncompounded unmoving base. In the words of South Park, what? Simple. As we breathe in, we are wired to notice, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. We notice sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. We notice emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. The components of existence, if you will. Some external, some internal, some pleasurable, some painful, some physical, some mental, some interesting, some boring, some glorious, and others grotesque. But as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel quite less solid, quite less permanent, quite less defining. And that is the base of which we speak right here. Sometimes base is used metaphorically to describe the fact that we all have the neurological equipment to practice mindfulness, meditation, and their byproduct empathy, because we all seem to have a sympathetic nervous system, a parasympathetic nervous system, and an anterior cingulate gyrus. But right now, in this context, we're referring to the fact that, once again, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during the previous inhalation could feel a little bit less graspable, a little bit less permanent, a little bit less defining, a little bit more empty, a little bit as non-graspable as the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although it could be tantalizing to the eye, is actually quite non-graspable to the hand. Along with the deities of the five elements that animate creation. Once again, let us plunge into the layer cake of metaphor, shall we? I'm sorry, Omer, I'm not sure I understand your question. Let's continue. As we relax into our exhalation, one moment, if you please. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever water element we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was empowered with the presence of Akshobhya's whom. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever earth element we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was empowered with the presence of Ratnasambhava's one-syllable mantra, Tram. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever fire element we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was empowered with Amitabha's Bija syllable free. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever wind element we might have noticed during our previous inhalation can begin to feel as if it wasn't as empowered with Amagosadi's bija syllable ah. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever space element we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as if it was as empowered as Vairochana's bija syllable ah. So we need not empowerment, we need not ritual, we need not magic. To simply notice and release is all the tantric empowerment we require. And now for our third and final recitation. From the colors of the rainbow, the primordial families and their qualities will manifest. Compounded moving parts in the uncompounded unmoving base, along with the deities of the five elements that animate creation. To keep track of this, the third set of 96 breaths, or rounds, the third collection of 8 sets of 12 rounds, we can gingerly rest the great knuckle at the base of our right ring finger upon the tip of our left ring finger, resting these two hands palm up in our lap. Doing so, it seems, gathers our subtle energies into the navel chakra behind our navel, which is about the size of a nickel, horizontal, and about a thumb's width before the spine. We come now to the final portion of this evening's live stream. Please chant with me the 48th verse of the vast expanse of Diamond Mind. Notions like past, present, and future cannot comprehend the nature of the unborn unceasing. In truth, nothing arises, nothing ceases. The wisdom of Source unifies all and dispels any such notions. All right, here comes the second recitation with a bit of the old commentary. Notions like past, present, and future cannot comprehend the nature of the unborn unceasing. So, what do we mean by unborn? What is this? So it's very, very simple. Unborn is a metaphor. Think of it this way. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as non-graspable as if it had never been born. Now, clearly that is both hyperbolic and figurative. So, there are many myths surrounding mindfulness and meditation, and a particularly virulent one, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the idea that we can only live in the present moment. Well, let's push away the past and push away the future and only live now. But that's indulging our controlling tendencies, isn't it? It's living in contrivance. It's concentration. And concentration is antithetical to mindfulness. For mindfulness, we are wired to practice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. If the timeless mind is the sympathetic and parasympathetic aspects of the autonomic nervous system, then the time-full mind would be the anterior cingulate gyrus, which is ideal for comparing, contrasting, sorting, evaluating, calculating, theorizing, arguing, explaining, but terrible at vulnerably perceiving and viscerally releasing. Relieving, that's something completely different. That's what you do in the bathroom. Let's continue. In truth, nothing arising, nothing ceases. What do we mean here by nothing? Are we being nihilistic? Are we closing our eyes and going, la la la, there is nothing, I'm just a brain in a jar? No. What are we doing? Nothing here is a metaphor. So, nothing that arises, everything that, there is nothing that arises that we can perceive that we cannot release. There is nothing that ceases that we can perceive that we cannot release. Whatever generation or creation we perceive, we can release. Whatever cessation we perceive, we can release. And here's something kind of funny. Arising can be a metaphor for mindfulness, and cessation could be a mindfulness for release. So even the act of mindfulness is non-graspable. Even the act of meditation is non-graspable. The wisdom of Source unifies all and dispels any such notions. So, there are some people who, I kid you not, they think they're so spiritual they cannot tell the difference between doggy-doo and organic free trade chocolate. Those people are not allowed to prepare me dessert. Sorry, ain't gonna happen. So here, let us dispel the mystery of non-duality. Here's how it works. As we breathe in, doggy dew and chocolate are quite different. As we relax into our exhalation, they both share the same characteristics of being a little bit less graspable, a little bit less permanent, a little bit less defining, or at least seeming that way. Now for our final recitation. Notions like past, present, and future cannot comprehend the nature of the unborn unceasing. In truth, nothing arises, nothing ceases. The wisdom of source unifies all and dispels any such notions. Now that we come to the final collection of 96 rounds of breath, I invite you to join me in gingerly resting the great knuckle at the base of our right little finger upon the tip of our left little finger as we rest these two hands palm up in our lap in a manner that actually helps the subtle energies to coalesce in our lower abdomen in a region poetically referred to as the secret wheel. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 1/4 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.